What is going on, everybody? Like you probably already know, we're going to be testing the best 3D printing surfaces that you probably already have lying around your house. Now, we're testing these with just PLA plastic, not ABS. If you want to see that tested, I'll link a video down in the description by Devin at Make Anything. Also, there's going to be a list of his recommended 3D pens down there in the description that I used when I was finding my very own 3D pen. Lastly, there are links and timestamps down there in the description to things in this video and other stuff I might mention, as well as anything else I forgot. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the video. Like I said, the surfaces we're testing today you should be able to find around your house somewhere or cheaply at a general store. So the materials that we have in the lineup for today are paper, cardboard, glue-hardened cardboard, painter's tape, duct tape, aluminum foil, wax paper, and parchment paper, because I have heard there's a difference between those last two. Alright, so the first surface in our lineup is good old-fashioned paper. Here I have some kind of thinnish cardstock, but any normal non-gloss paper should work. I've just glued it to a piece of cardboard so that I can test all these different types of materials, but right now we're just working with this paper. And also avoid, you probably don't want like fuzzy, coarse construction paper, because that's going to have a completely different result. So I'm going to perform the same tests on all of the materials, so that we can make a fair judgment of the best one. So I'm going kind of fast down here to make sure it really does stick in. There's the base of the cube. Here we have a cube with thin lines and then towers to see if the surface has enough adhesion to hang on to the cube and support those towers and bridges that go across the top to make a nice square cube. The paper seems to be holding on well from one tower to another. Although this is testing the surface, it's also a good test of your 3D pen if you want to test and see some of its capabilities. That seems pretty good. I'm just going to pop it off. There you go, it came off pretty easily. There's a tiny little mark on the paper, but that's not much. And the cube seems to have worked out well. Those upper parts aren't really a test of the surface, but down here we've got all nice. So I'd say, yes, the paper is good in this category. Okay, so our next test that we're going to perform on all of these surfaces is making circles. Circles are great for testing surfaces because they require the pen to approach from all different angles, so that increases the chance of the part getting ripped off. I'm just going to make a set of concentric circles and then put a few lines through them, almost like I'm making a target, to make sure that it all has adhered well. So there's the concentric circles, and then I'm just going to cross through that way, and cross through this way. And now it's cooled, we'll just pop it off, and see if it adhered too much to the paper. So that came off with a little bit of prying. We have a flat surface on the bottom, and it doesn't look like it really did any damage to the paper, so that's a good sign. Now, the third and final test that we will perform on these surfaces to see their quality is just to make a big triangle. It's going to be a big flat triangle, because those often show whether or not the surface adheres too much to your print. If the paper is too grippy, then that will result in the paper tearing as I pull off the triangle. So I'm just going to fill this back and forth like this. My layers are not going to be perfect, and neither are they super pressed in or super light. And I'm going to make this 2 layers deep. So I just finished the second layer, and now I'm just going to go around the edges like I normally would with a normal print, and just kind of fill up the sides to conceal the ends of the layers and keep everything nicely bound together. There we go. Now I'll just let it cool for 30 seconds. So now I'm going to pop it off, see what happens. Okay, it looks like it was still a bit warm, so maybe I should have waited a little longer. But the paper is unharmed, so that is a good sign. So you can print large objects. You can see the bottom here, that's about how hard I was pressing into the paper. It wasn't super hard. I'm kind of trying to work with the surfaces and not against it, because that's what you would do with a normal print. Alright, so how did paper do? In my opinion, quite well. So the print stuck on well, they came off well, and it didn't damage the surface very much. Checked all those boxes pretty well. That is why paper is going to receive a 4-star out of 5 stars, so 4 out of 5 stars rating for its application in 3D penning uses. As you'll see later in this video, not all the materials stand up to that 4-star rating, so just in case you're wondering, for me when I'm grading them, 1 star is trash, 2 stars is basically trash, there's some applications, 3 stars, there are a few applications, it isn't really trash, but it isn't really good either. 4 stars, yes, it's a good, usable material that I would suggest, but there are still some problems with it. And 5 stars, there's only a few little minor problems, and the rest of it is really just perfect. So that's how I'm grading them. The paper did really well, and for how often it is thrown away, it's definitely a very available material, and can be used, and I definitely suggest it. Okay, so now we're going to test cardboard. All of these are printed at 190 degrees, in case you're wondering. Okay, so there's my base, and now I'll make the towers. Okay, we got our 4 towers, and the cardboard is held on nicely. I'm gonna do the bridges across the top now. And we'll wait a little bit of time for things to cool. That came off nicely. It seems to stick well. Move on to the circles. Here's the outer ring that I do two passes deep. Crosses to make sure it all stuck on well and isn't just sitting in place. Alright, so I've waited more than 30 seconds, and we'll see how well it comes off. Seems to be sticking, wanting to really stay on there. There we go. You can see it's got a few little tidbits of the cardboard, and I think that might be due to some of those small little hairs you can kind of see. And just the roughness of the cardboard, it kind of gets stuck in there and gets slightly pulled off when you take things off. Creating a nice big triangle. I'm gonna try not to push in super hard, because I know the cardboard is grippier than the paper. Alright, so I just finished the first layer of the cardboard. It's not the tightest layer, but it should represent a normal layer, and I'm gonna rotate it to get my lines going a different direction, cross back and forth, and this is going to be a bit of a tighter layer. Just finished with the roundup of the edges. Alright, so I've waited a little over 30 seconds, and now I'm going to peel it off. You can see the bottom here. Once again, we've got a little bit of brown, but it still came off nicely. Alright, so I think cardboard did a decent job in the 3D penning test. However, it wasn't quite as good as paper. So that's why I'm giving cardboard 4.5 stars. Now, those little hairs just made it stick on a little too well. It was too hard to remove. It did lay down very nicely, and then when you peeled it off because of those little hairs, the print would often have little bits of cardboard stuck in the bottom, and I didn't really want that. So in my opinion, there's really no reason to use cardboard over paper, and if you want the stiffness of the cardboard, I'd suggest just making a material board like me and putting other materials on top of it. I did want the cardboard to turn out well, but it just stuck too hard. So now we're going to move on to the glue-coated or glue-hardened cardboard that I hope will be able to remedy some of the issues with the normal cardboard. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I'll tell you what my favorite material is to 3D pen on and why. I'll also show you a graph from best to worst of the 3D penning materials so that you can get an overall view of which materials performed the most highly. Alright, so now we have glue-coated cardboard. You can kind of see something from a last print, but you might wonder why I'd use this instead of just normal cardboard. Well, I had experienced a bit of over-adhesion in my past experiences with using cardboard, so I thought maybe if I coated it in some liquid Elmer's glue and then just let it dry, it would be nice and harder across the top so that it wouldn't have these little hairs that came with this one. So I did that, and now we're going to see what the tests come off like. Starting out, once again, just like all the other ones, with the cube. There we go. All the towers are up, and it's still adhered very well. There's the cube. We'll let it cool for a sec. So coming under here, trying to peel it off. Ooh, that's not really a good sign. It broke down there at the base, and it seems to be kind of wanting to stick on. We got some marks along the bottom there, and this is probably more due to my 3D pen skills, but we got a pillar that came off down here. Now we're going to do the circles. Going the same speed and the same temperature as all the other ones. Okay, so now we've got our circles all cooled. Let's remove those. Oh wow. It's difficult to get off, then it kind of came off with a crack. We don't really have any marks underneath it. There's a little bit, but yeah, I'd say it came out fairly well. It was a little bit too hard to take off for my liking, though. Let's start on our triangle. Here's our outline, and now we just fill it in. Okay, so the triangle's cool. Just gotta kind of get a fingernail under there. And then start from another corner that's further away from a ripped area. That actually came off pretty well. But we have some bad cardboard adhesion down here, and it's kind of left a lot of marks. You can actually tell from previous times where I've tried to pull off some parts from this material, and they've really ripped off. Alright, so as you probably saw, the glue-hardened cardboard, in my attempt to remedy some of the issues with normal cardboard, completely backfired. Glue-hardened cardboard is receiving 1 star from me, because it simply stuck to the prints way too well. I thought that maybe the glue, once dried and cured, would no longer have its sticky effect, but I think somehow the heat from the melted plastic reinitiated its gluing properties, and then it just stuck down really hard, and it would tear up, and just didn't work well. It was just way too hard to work with. Alright, so here I have some blue painter's tape. I wanted to test this because I know that a lot of people use painter's tape on their 3D printers to get things to stick down, and I was wondering if it would work just as well for a 3D pen. Okay, so there are our 3 pillars, and now I'll just quick do those bridges. So here's the nicely cooled cube, and I'm just going to try and take it off by one of these corners. And it looks like we snagged it on one of those edges, but it still came off. It seems to have worked pretty well for our delicate cube. So we're going to test out doing some circles. Out of filament, just got to reload, and then I'll keep penning this. Okay, we got it plugged in. Concentric circles, and then the line through them. There we go. Just got to wait for this to cool. Okay, so the circles are cooled, and we're going to try and pop those off. Struggling a little bit here. Doesn't appear to be coming off as nicely as it did with the cardboard and the paper. Maybe due to my inconsistencies, but it's really well stuck on there with those inner circles. There we go, I got it off. It left some marks, as you can see some of my other prints did, and I ended up breaking off 2 of my cross pieces and this edge here. Granted, I wasn't being the most gentle person in the world, but it did break, so That's kind of a low grade. Alright, so I'm just finishing up with the second layer of this triangle. It was printed at 190 degrees Celsius, just like all my other ones, and 2 layers deep, with the first layer going one way, and the next layer being rotated about 45 degrees. My first layer isn't super solid, and my second layer is a bit more coverage, and then I just finish up the sides. Alright, so it's pretty cool now, and we're just going to try and take one of these points and get it off the painter's tape. My fingernails aren't liking this. That is not good. We got some serious rippage, so that's worse than the glue-hardened cardboard did right there, with all of that coming off. It seems to have done it around this edge where it was slightly peeling up, so if you have nice thick pieces of painter's tape, you might be off a little better, but... Alright, so what's my opinion on blue painter's tape? Well, it just sticks too well. I really did expect it to do well, because people have used it to 3D print on for quite some time as their go-to material, their surface for their 3D printer. And I do know people have used it to wrap like paper models in that they then 3D pen around so they don't have to build up the whole infrastructure. But in that scenario, they never actually have to remove the extruded filament from the painter's tape, which is really the issue with painter's tape. It just sticks too well, and often when removing it, it just like messes with it, and then it rips in some places, and it just doesn't work well. That's why painter's tape is getting 2 stars from me. That puts it as the second worst material I have tested today. It left little artifacts on the bottom, even worse than the cardboard, or in some cases the glue-hardened cardboard, but it's still receiving 2 stars from me because I do think it was a bit better and easier to work with than glue-hardened cardboard, and you didn't have to spread glue over cardboard. Now, you might be surprised that we are going to test duct tape, but I was really curious how the extruded filament would stick to the smooth and kind of soft rubber-like surface of the duct tape. You can see I've gotten some prints off here earlier for kind of just prior knowledge, so I could really give you an honest review of the material. Okay, looks like I got some. I knocked it off with the back of the head of the pen, but that can be fixed. Oh shoot. So I'll just try this again. We'll make my lines a little thicker. Like I said, I'm trying to work with the material, not against it, so I'm gonna do everything I can to get this to work. Right there, I kind of had to lift it up and I lost some control. And now I'm gonna lift up for those pillars. Pillars set. Now I can do the bridges. So it appears to me that the filament can stick to the duct tape pretty well, but it comes off quite easily. We'll have to see that with the large triangle test, if it really does come off easily. I think it's working pretty well, and it just pops right off. So that is a good sign. It comes off more easily than the painter's tape, or the glue-hardened cardboard, or the cardboard, or the paper. So it is currently the #1 for coming off easily, but it may come off slightly too easily. Also, if you press the hot end of the pen into, you will leave a mark and bore right through. So that's to be aware of. Don't press too hard. So I'm going to do some circles. Try that again. I didn't stick there at the start. That stuck nicely. So that's kind of peeling up on that corner. I gotta be careful, but it's not too bad. If you're a little bit more careful than me, you won't have much trouble. So some of those areas kind of peeled up, but it didn't end catastrophically.
Yeah, I gotta watch for those strings on duct tape because it can really cause it to start peeling off. I'm gonna pull off the circles. Oh wow. They just kind of slid right off. Once again, the best removal. It's got a nice silky finish on the bottom. That's really smooth. It did have some problems adhering at some of those areas, but it definitely comes off nicely. We're gonna test the triangle. There we go. Now we just gotta wait for the triangle to cool. Alright, so it's pretty cooled now. I'm sorry about the pianist in the background that's kind of going nuts. There's a lot of people in my house and they all have to find something to do. So, oh wow. That just came right off. We've still got that kind of shiny finish. You can even see, I think, some of those spots where there were divots. So that's not super great, but it worked out really nicely. I'm liking duct tape. It seems to work really well. However, you really might want to consider printing at lower temperatures, because here you've got lines going back and forth from every pass of my 3D pen, so you're gonna have to continually be replacing your duct tape.
So how did duct tape fare in this little competition of ours between 3D penning surfaces? Actually, I'm gonna give duct tape 4 stars. I really enjoyed how the prints came off nicely, and although they did sometimes struggle to stick well enough, I think they did a good enough job sticking that it was easily usable. However, it is a big bummer that it is so easy to melt through the duct tape with the hot end of the 3D pen, which is why I did not get up into the 4.5 and 5-star category, which is coming. So yeah, I didn't think it was a huge problem that it would melt through, but it was annoying, and you're gonna have to keep replacing that duct tape after a good deal of use. Although it was very nice to be able to just pop the prints off once I had done printing them and not worry so much about waiting for it to cool so that it would be able to come off without sticking too hard to the material. Hey dude, I can see that you're getting great value out of my video, but you haven't liked or subscribed yet. Oh, my bad. I'll do that right now. Oh, thanks man. Every like and subscriber means a whole lot to me, and if you really want to go above and beyond, you can ring the bell so that you get notified when I release a new video.
Here I have some aluminum foil, and because this has so little traction with the 3D pen, I decided I would test it as bare aluminum foil, which I've kind of wrinkled up to increase that traction. Then I'm going to add some stick glue, just like I do on my 3D printer with its glass bed, and put that on and see if that increases the traction and makes it nice to work with, because just from my experience, it's got too little traction. You can see what I mean right there. It's not sticking. You really gotta work hard to came off again. Okay, got that to stick. I just gotta put this one last side on. Kind of coming off now. Let's try one more time. Got all the way around there. Oh! It came off with one of the tendrils of filament. From this, I might be able to eventually, if I tried really hard, get a nice box, but it's not working out on the glueless aluminum foil. Now I'm just going to move straight into the circles. And look at that end right there. That curled up. It seems to do that on most of the prints. Oh, I caught it in the nozzle. Let's try it one more time. The whole thing's kind of coming up now. There we go. So I did get the circles to stick. And, oh, they're already coming off. And they come off super easily from the aluminum foil. Unlike duct tape, it's super durable. You're never going to really hurt it with the hot nozzle. This is kind of all ratty and messed up. But it did work. So, if you want it to come off nice and easily, aluminum foil could work for you. Okay, so the big triangle is where I thought that aluminum foil might hold its hold the ace. Here I am really laying down a bit more of a solid layer since I know it's not going to stick too well. Trying to make sure I connect when it hits the sides because I'm losing the shape at the top. It came off the aluminum foil. I can really see it coming off here, so I'm trying to be extra careful going around these edges. The whole print is curled a little bit. And now I'm not even going to wait for this to cool since I know it can come off. And I can bend it a little bit back into shape. So I would say that triangle was a success. Definitely better than some of the other triangles that we have done. And it did stick and it came off really nicely and I'm able to take it off right away. No need to wait like we did with the other materials. Okay, so I said I was going to test with glue stick, as I am going to. So I'm just going to lay a few lines of glue stick across. Hairspray would probably work too, I've seen people do that. I'm already feeling it adhering a bit better. Now I'm gonna... Ooh. So it didn't just like slide off like earlier. It actually did take some work, so the stick glue definitely makes a difference. I'm gonna look at the bottom and see if I can see any glue sticking to it, but it seems to have worked and turned out very nicely. We get all the way around there, nice and smooth. I'm not really struggling with adhesion. Okay, so I'm gonna try and peel this off. It's all been drying for a while. It definitely isn't popping off or sliding off like it did earlier. It actually is a little bit difficult to remove. You can see some of the glue is actually crossed over. It doesn't seem to be any glue stuck to it or aluminum foil. It's torn off. It has turned out very nice. I'm just going to start trying this triangle. There hasn't been any curling of the corners like there was with the straight aluminum foil without any glue stick on it. Okay, so it's dried for a little bit, and now I'm going to try and peel it off. Oh. I can feel the glue is kind of sticky underneath there, and it's all off. I don't see anything wrong with it. Came off nicely. And the aluminum foil is a little bit stretched in some places, but other than that, it is perfectly reusable. Aluminum foil with glue stick seems to be a very strong competitor to some of the other good options.
Without any glue, aluminum foil is one of the worst surfaces I have tested. It's just simply way too hard to get prints to stick to it, if it hadn't been for stick glue. With stick glue, aluminum foil jumped from the bottom to the top of my list for 3D penning surfaces. It's very easy to lay down the filament, it sticks on nicely, and it's easy to remove with no damage to the surface. This is why aluminum foil with stick glue is getting a 5-star rating. Yes, 5 stars for aluminum foil with stick glue. It checks all the boxes for me, and I really enjoy penning on it. Although I was tempted to bump it down to 4.5 stars because it does require stick glue to get it to work nicely. But I figured stick glue is easy to get a hold of, and it doesn't take very much of it, and it's easy to apply. So that's why it still got 5 stars.
We're gonna test the wax paper just like we did all the other ones. It's not on a material board, but I'll try and hold it flat here on my cutting mat. I always thought wax paper was the same as parchment paper, but I've been told to not use parchment paper because it doesn't work when 3D penning. Here's the finished box, and I'm going to hold it down flat and try and pop it off like the other ones. I'm not just going to bend it. Don't see any real issues with the bottom surface. It might feel a little waxy. We got some fogginess in there, and it actually looks like it's deposited some wax onto my cutting mat. And now we'll test those circles. A real advantage of wax paper is that you can see through it, unlike all these other materials where you couldn't really trace something. Wax paper allows you to trace things. I think the heat has once again sealed it to my mat, which is an interesting effect. Okay, so now we're going to remove it. And it just came off. I bent the paper, but you can do that when it's wax paper and you're tracing things on it. Everything came out fine, but once again you can see that it did kind of seep through and deposit some wax or something onto my cutting mat. So wax paper seems to be working out well. I'm really enjoying how it's see-through. I can actually see those boxes on my cutting mat. That helped me earlier when I was making the cube. Okay, so I think it should be able to peel off right away. That'd be a big advantage. There we go, comes right off. We got a nice bottom surface. It did kind of fog it up, and it doesn't feel quite as waxy in that place as the other places.
Alright, so a high bar was set for wax paper by the success of aluminum foil with stick glue, but it does not let us down. I'm giving wax paper 5 stars as well. It is easy to pen on, it sticks down nicely, it's easy to remove, and it's transparent. So the ability to trace through the surface so that you can get designs from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions is super powerful, and it makes up for any faults I could come up with. Though I didn't enjoy using it as much as aluminum foil, its transparency makes up for anything. So that's why wax paper is getting 5 stars.
Lastly, our lineup brings us to parchment paper. I have expected it to perform the same as wax paper, basically. And in the same way as wax paper, it is transparent, at least to some degree. But I have heard that you're not supposed to pen on parchment paper, but you're supposed to do it on wax paper. So I'm going to see how things work out. And also, there are some videos linked in the description to other 3D penning experts in case you are interested. As always, we gotta... Oh, that's not good. I think I may already be seeing why parchment paper is not recommended. Nothing seems to stick to it. Okay, we got some down there. Now I'm gonna just... Oh, it is not as sticky as the raw aluminum foil. Nothing sticks to it, really. No matter what I do, it all just seems to just kind of slide off. Oh, I was trying to remove the string and it came off. For an example, here we've got the nozzle, and if I just run it, oh, it's actually forming a blob. But it'll just slide along there. If you aren't careful, you really kind of have to press it in. I'll try one last time. Parchment paper is a fail. I'm going to try and do some circles and the triangle, but I doubt those are going to have any more success. So that's what you get when you try to use parchment paper.
Oh, parchment paper. I was so wrong about it, any of its similarities to wax paper. The only thing is that it comes in a roll, and it's transparent. It's not even as transparent as wax paper, though, and nothing sticks to it. So I'm not going to waste your time saying much. It just gets 1 star, nothing sticks to it, don't 3D pen on it. Now, before I tell you my opinion as to which surface is the best, it's time for the question of the day. So, I want you to pause the video right now and comment down below which surface you think is the best. So, there's lots of different variables here depending upon what you'd like to 3D pen on. So, yeah, comment down below. I'll have that question also pinned as the top comment. Now, let's jump into the conclusion. Alright. So you can see all my test samples sitting here. I've looked at all of them and considered all the surfaces. And the moment you have been waiting for this whole video has finally arrived, where I name the king of 3D printing surfaces, and if there is a tie between two surfaces that have the same star rating, then I give myself the authority to pick which one is better. Additionally, I'm going to show you a graph from top to bottom of which surfaces I think are the best, so that you can see it all in an organized manner. But now, drum roll please. Cue the drum roll. Yes. The best 3D printing surface that you will have lying around your house is wax paper. But before you go, now that you know what the king of the 3D printing surfaces is, why don't you check out this graph right here, where you can see all the surfaces in order. Yeah, you've got right below that the aluminum foil with stick glue came up really close, and it depends upon your preference whether you would rather have wax paper or aluminum foil, but the fact that you needed glue for aluminum foil really made a bummer, and the tracing and see-through of wax paper, like I said earlier, is a big plus. Coming down underneath that, we've got duct tape, which was kind of an underdog, and I didn't expect to do well, but really pumped it up there, although was bummed out by the fact that it couldn't really handle the hot. And just running down the racks, we've got paper, cardboard, then we've got painter's tape, followed by glue-hardened cardboard, and with really absolutely no reason to use it, parchment paper. Now, the video you're going to want to watch next is right here. That's where I talk all about why it's important to use a design notebook for anything you're creating every single time. I go really in-depth in that video, so you can watch that. There's another video right here that YouTube thinks you could watch, and right here you can subscribe to my channel. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.